So we're a few games into the 2025 NBA playoffs, and I asked you guys on my community tab and on Twitter to give me some takeaways or hot takes for every team so far, and I wanted to react to these today and see if I agree with them or not, see if it's an overreaction or you actually may be onto something. And we're going to start off one that came from Twitter from TJ, and he says that the Bucks never should have made the Kuzma deal if they were just going to turn him into a shooter. He doesn't fit next to Giannis, and they don't have him on the court in the non-Giannis minutes to create offense despite badly needing it. And yeah, TJ, I 100% agree with you. I didn't like the Kuzma trade at the time, and he actually put up a Tony Snell-like stat line in game number 1 against Indiana. With Damian Lillard out still with the blood clot and missing game 1, they desperately needed Kyle Kuzma to give Giannis some help out there, and he played 22 minutes. He went 0 of 5 from the field, 0 of 2 from 3, 0 of 2 from the free throw line. He also had 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 steals, 0 blocks, a minus 22 as well on the floor. Didn't play good defense either. And Kuzma did have a better game in game number 2 where he did score 12 points and was getting to the rim a little bit more, not taking as many jumpers. But this was another Giannis masterclass that just ended in defeat for the Bucks. They did get Damian Lillard back in this game, played 37 minutes, did not shoot the ball well. Giannis put up 34 points, 18 rebounds, and 7 assists, and they still lost by 8 points. Bobby Portis even gave them 28, and they still lost in this game because Indiana is just a deeper team and more well-rounded. And you're looking at this Bucks team right now, they don't have a ton of depth, they don't have a ton of picks in the future or young assets right now, and I don't know if they have any long-term pieces on this team not named Giannis or Damian Lillard. And I tweeted this out as well, as Giannis in his last 6 fully healthy playoff games, he's averaged around 35 points on 53% shooting, 17 rebounds, 6.5 assists, and he has an 0-6 record, losing to Boston back in 2022, Miami in 2023. Didn't play against Indiana last year, but has lost 2 games to Indiana so far this year. Maybe Milwaukee turns things around and they can win both these games at home and send this back to Indiana in game 5 with a tied series. But if they lose one of these games at home and they go down 3-1, I just can't see Indiana blowing a 3-1 lead right now with the way Haliburton is playing, facilitating for this team. Aaron Nesmith stepped up in game number 2, as well as Andrew Nembhard, who seems like he's a playoff riser. Siakam's giving them consistent scoring like he did against Milwaukee last year. And we're going to be getting towards an offseason where Milwaukee's going to have very big decisions to make, because how do they make this roster better around Giannis? I'm not saying that they are out of it right now, but if they lose game 3 or game 4, I don't think they're going to be able to win this series, and then we're going to have some very big decisions to make for Milwaukee's future in the offseason. This next one comes from Cruz about the Cavs, and he says that Evan Mobley is going to win Eastern Conference Finals MVP and Finals MVP, while the Cavs gentlemen sweep the Celtics. And yeah, the Cavs blew out the Miami Heat in game number 1. They won by 21 points at home. I did expect the Cavs to sweep Miami in these playoffs because of what they can get, not from their top guys, because of what they can get from Ty Jerome, who put up 28 points off the bench. And Evan Mobley looked solid as a defender in this game. He did struggle offensively. Honestly, I think this is a little bit of a hot take here, which, you know what, I like, but I'm going to disagree. I think if they end up gentlemen sweeping the Celtics, it's probably going to be Donovan Mitchell getting Finals MVP or Conference Finals MVP. And I honestly don't think they are going to gentlemen sweep the Celtics unless the Celtics are facing the injury bug. We know Jaylen Brown was nursing an injury going into game number 1 against Orlando. Jason Tatum is going to be out tonight against Orlando in game number 2. And who knows, if Boston is banged up, Cleveland could take advantage of that because they are fully healthy right now. They have a really good starting 5. You got DeAndre Hunter coming off the bench. You got Sam Merrill, Isaac Okoro, Ty Jerome, guys that could be switchable defenders and can knock down threes. This Cavs team is super deep, and that could be a recipe for success to beating Boston and going to the NBA Finals for the first time since 2016. Now, speaking of the Boston Celtics, Mac is a little bit higher on Boston, and he says that the Celtics are winning the East with a 12-2 record. So basically just losing 2 games throughout 3 series. So he thinks they are going to dominate the Eastern Conference. Now, my pre-playoffs predictions was the Celtics over the Orlando Magic in 5 games. They blew out Orlando, winning by 17 in game number 1, but it was a close game at halftime. But Jason Tatum is not going to play game number 2, and he did struggle there in game 1, as well as Jaylen Brown. And Derek White put up 30 points. Peyton Pritchard put up 19 points. I still think they're going to beat Orlando even without Jason Tatum, and I know Paolo Banchero has been playing great over the last few weeks. And the way that the seedings are matched up, Boston would either get Detroit or New York in round number 2. And I think they could beat both those teams in 5 games as well, but I just don't see them sweeping the Cavs or the Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals. So I'm going to sell this hot take, and I don't think it's going to happen. JTB mentions about the LA Clippers that they are the second best team in the Western Conference, and he thinks they take the Thunder to 7 games. The size of that Clippers team in playoff Kawhi could prove to be vital on the defensive side of the floor. Everybody's talking about the LA Clippers right right now. This has been the best series so far between the Clippers and the Nuggets. Both games have been insanely competitive, and it's tied 1-1, and Kawhi Leonard looks like prime Kawhi Leonard again now that he is fully healthy. He put up 22 points in their overtime loss against Denver, but played so much better on Monday where he put up 39 points on 78% shooting. They were able to beat the Nuggets and split the games in Denver, going back to the Intuit Dome for game number 3. And a lot of people are high on the Clippers going to the playoffs, including me. Ivica Zubac has really taken strides as this elite rim protector for this squad and is just a dominant offensive threat down low. And I know Norman Powell has been inconsistent so far, but he hit some big time shots against Denver in game number 2. James Harden is still playing some of the best basketball he has over the last few years, and you have great defenders around these guys like Chris Dunn, Ben Simmons, and Derrick Jones Jr. They got a good blend of ball handling, defense, and three-point shooting, and I think this is a recipe for success to possibly upsetting the OKC Thunder. I think the Thunder is still in a tier of its own, and I do think the Clippers and Nuggets kind of got an unfavorable seeding with being the 4 or 5 seed, because I'd rather have been the 6 or 7 seed, and you go up against LA or Houston in round number 1, and then you'd play one of those teams or the Lakers or Timberwolves in round number 2, and not have to play each other, and then OKC in round number 2. So this is going to be a dogfight in round number 1, and then you're going to be matched up with OKC in round number 2. I think that's going to be tough. I do think OKC is going to beat whoever wins in this series, but man, the Clippers are playing some amazing basketball, and Kawhi Leonard's legacy would just go up another level if he could somehow upset the OKC Thunder in round number 2, and I think there's at least a chance, which is just exciting to see because we haven't seen Kawhi be fully healthy in a playoff series since basically the bubble. I didn't really get many Grizzlies hot takes or takeaways. Maybe everybody's just out on them. So K-Dot said on Twitter that just the Grizzlies front office is stupid. It was one of the biggest blowouts in playoff history in game number 1, where the OKC Thunder defeated the Memphis Grizzlies by a score of 131-80. Yeah, they won by 51 points, and then they ended up beating them on Tuesday 118-99. The game was a little bit close in that third quarter, but yeah, the Grizzlies won 48 games throughout the regular season, and OKC is making them look like a team that won half of that, basically 24 games. And Memphis also doesn't have their first round pick in the 2025 draft because they sent that to Washington to get off the Marcus Smart contract, which I think you could probably have traded a lesser value asset in the offseason, since that Smart contract would have just been an expiring deal. And I feel like what the OKC Thunder are right now, or maybe the Houston Rockets, was supposed to be the Memphis Grizzlies. It wasn't too long ago, back in 2022, they beat Minnesota in round number 1. They had a good series against Golden State in round number 2. And then in that 2023 regular season, they were a 2 seed in the Western Conference. Yes, they lost to LeBron and the Lakers in round number 1, but the future felt so bright in Memphis because of their deep team, all the assets they had. 2024 was a disaster with injuries, but this team won 48 games in a tough Western Conference this year. At one point, they were the 2 or 3 seed in the Western Conference, and then they shocked everybody when they fired Taylor Jenkins late in the year, and it doesn't feel like this team is gelling well together right now, and it looks like there's a clear talent gap between the OKC Thunder, the best team in the Western Conference, and the Memphis Grizzlies at this moment. And it felt like guys this year like Gigi Jackson and Vince Williams, because of injury or just playing time, really didn't take a step forward. They moved on from Jake LaRavia, one of their first round picks back in the 2022 draft. Marvin Bagley is playing 11 minutes a night for this team. John Conchar was playing 10 minutes a night in game number 2, and they're asking Scottie Pippen Jr. to play 30 plus minutes. I just don't feel like this Grizzlies team is in a position right now to succeed in the Western Conference, and I feel like they're also going to have some big decisions to make this offseason. Ego says here for the Miami Heat, he's really positive that Tyler Hero bounces back and drops 50 in game number 2, and they split the games in Miami. The series goes to 7 games and Miami wins. Yeah, man, I'm sorry to break it to you. This isn't happening. There's a better chance the Miami Heat gets swept than this series go to 6 games, in my opinion. I'm not even trying to be a Heat hater. There's just a clear talent gap between the Cavs and the Heat right now, and I would be blown away if this series goes to 6 games, let alone 7, because we saw Tyler Hero struggle as the number 1 option in round number 1 against Boston last year when Jimmy Butler was hurt. I do think it's going to be tough for him at times to be the number 1 option with the opposing defense having all the focus on Tyler Hero on the perimeter. Davion Mitchell has been a fun story as of late though, and Bam Adebayo has been playing some good basketball as well. I think it's just time that the Miami Heat start thinking about the 2026 season. A-Dog says on Twitter that the Knicks were so close to making a championship roster until they spent way too much on Mikal Bridges. If they had more picks, they would have gone some real depth and could have been taken seriously. I don't know how they could take the team up a level with the few assets they have. So yeah, the Knicks are tied right now against Detroit in round number 1 for a decent amount of game number 1. The Pistons looked like the better team, and then the Knicks went on a 21-0 run in that second half. The Knicks did come back in game number 2, but they ended up losing at home 194, only scoring 18 points in the first quarter and 18 points in the third quarter. And a lot of people are anti-Jalen Brunson right now. And as a Knicks fan, I see where everybody's coming from. Jalen Brunson has relied too much on foul baiting at this times, and he really doesn't need to. He's way too talented as a half-court scorer to be relying on free throws and getting foul calls. Karl Anthony Towns looked like a non-existent $60 million player in the second half. Mikal Bridges went 3 of 11 from downtown, and the Knicks really didn't get much out of their bench like they did in game number 1. Mitchell Robinson had 0 points. Cam Payne had 0 points after a big game 1. Miles McBride had 8 points but was a -5, and Landry Shamet had 0 points. Only 8 bench points isn't going to cut it. And I don't think it's time to hit the panic button yet on the Knicks. I still believe they are going to beat Detroit. Maybe it's going to be 6 games. Maybe it's going to be 7. Splitting the first 2 at MSG does hurt because you can go down 2-1 after losing game 3 on Thursday. But the Knicks need to get Karl-Anthony Towns more involved in the half court, and they also need to get Mikal Bridges more involved as well. You spent way too much money acquiring these 2 players last offseason for them to be guys that are just going to stand in the corner and are not going to be aggressive enough on the offensive end of the floor. It's okay to let Jalen Brunson not cook at times and give the ball to Cat and Bridges, because Cat is a great offensive threat. He's a unicorn out there because he's able to space the floor at 7 feet tall. Mikal Bridges has one of the best fadeaway jumpers in the NBA. Let these guys get into a rhythm and allow Jalen Brunson to have less of a workload on offense to keep him fresh throughout the whole game. So then he's not relying too much on getting free throws late in the game because maybe he's tired, or maybe the defense knows exactly what he's going to do because he's had the ball so much throughout the first 3.5 quarters. I predicted the Knicks to lose to Boston in round number 2, and if they get past Detroit, I still think that's going to happen, and then we can have offseason questions. But going into the season, a lot of people thought the Knicks were the 2nd best team in the Eastern Conference and a top 5 team in the NBA. They definitely don't look like either right now, and maybe that's just going to come back on Tibbs because the offense is not reaching its fullest potential. Hoops Rewind says that the Lakers are going to lose in the first round, which would definitely be a little bit of a shocker as they are the 3 seed, and they did lose in game number 1 in kind of blowout fashion to the Minnesota Timberwolves. They got off to a really good start, going up by 7 in the first quarter, but then they got outscored by 18 in the third. But they looked so much better Tuesday night, where they were able to win game number 2 94-85. The defense looked that much better. This was a game that the Lakers, I thought, could have won by a little bit more. They outscored Minnesota by 19 in the first quarter. Luka Doncic ended up scoring 31 in this game. He was phenomenal in the first half. I think Minnesota has to be thrilled with splitting the games in LA, going back to Minnesota for game number 3, especially with Julius Randle playing as well as he did in game number 2. Naz Reid and Dante DiVincenzo, as well as Randle and McDaniels, all got into foul trouble in game number 2. So if they can work on that in games 3 and forward, I think Minnesota is still going to win this series. That's what I predicted going into these playoffs. The fact that they won game number 1 and at least made it a close game in game number 2, I do think Minnesota is on their way to pulling off an upset, and I think the Lakers are going to be fine going forward because they have Luka Doncic on this team. I still can't believe that happened. Abdul says the Orlando Magic can come back against the Boston Celtics if everybody plays at their highest level. I think even if Powell continues to play the way he did in game number 1, same with Franz Wagner, and he could be a little bit more efficient, I still think Boston is going to win this series. Now, I predicted 5 games before when I was talking about the Boston Celtics. I do think Orlando could push this to 6 games, and who knows, if Jason Tatum misses a couple games in this series, this could maybe go to 7, because Jaylen Brown really struggled with his consistency throughout the regular season, and if he's nursing this injury as well, they're going to have to rely a ton on KP, Drew Holiday, Derek White, and Peyton Pritchard, which is a good supporting cast to rely on. It's definitely the best supporting cast of 2 stars by far in the NBA. And Orlando still plays some really good defense. They're gonna make it uncomfortable for Boston on the offensive end of the floor. But I just can't trust other guys outside of Powell and Franz to step up offensively. You may get a good KCP game offensively or a good Cole Anthony game offensively, but can Anthony Black take the next step? Can we see something out of Caleb Houston, Gary Harris, or Wendell Carter Jr.? This team did play Corey Joseph 26 minutes in game number 1. I just think Boston is a way better team, and they're not going to lose in round 1. Shoulder says here for the Denver Nuggets, if anybody not named Jokic on the Nuggets underperforms in the playoffs, they will get traded in the offseason. Denver was a couple possessions away from either being down 0-2 or up 2-0, as Aaron Gordon played great in game number 1. Same with Russell Westbrook, even though the shot wasn't falling as much as you would have liked it to. Jamal Murray played better in game number 2, and Aaron Gordon made some boneheaded plays down in crunch time in game number 2. I do think Denver could reevaluate this team if they do lose to LA in round number 1. They did fire Mike Malone very late in the year, which was definitely more shocking than the Taylor Jenkins firing that happened a couple weeks prior. And this team is so heavily invested into their core because of how much they're getting paid. Now, for some reason, ownership has a soft spot for Michael Porter Jr. because they both share a Missouri connection. I don't know if that story was fully true, but that would just be blasphemy if they weren't going to trade Michael Porter Jr. because both of them are from Missouri. So maybe we'd see something with an Aaron Gordon trade, or maybe they would look for a Jamal Murray upgrade. But I think you'd be very disappointed if you're the Nuggets. You won it all in 2023. You kept most of the roster. You did lose Bruce Brown and KCP along the way, but you lost in game 7 of Minnesota last year in round number 2, which was a shocker. And if you lose in round number 1 this year, you're going the wrong way. Mosen says here for the Indiana Pacers that they will lose to the Boston Celtics in 7 games in the Eastern Conference Finals. Despite the loss, this run will set the Pacers up as a destination for a star looking to compete for a championship, as the Pacers look to make a consolidation trade in the offseason and finally enter the first apron. Now, I always thought thought of the Indiana Pacers as a dark horse Kevin Durant trade. We know that Kevin Durant lives for basketball, right? And Indiana is one of the more historical basketball states in all of the NBA, and they're set up in a very good position right now in a weaker Eastern Conference to look to get one more scoring option and go all in with Siakam, Halliburton, and potentially KD. But I do think Indiana could pull off an upset in round number 2 against Cleveland. I think if it was Detroit, Milwaukee, or New York against Cleveland in round 2, they all would not have a better chance of pulling off that upset and beating the 1 seed like Indiana would because of their depth, because of their high octane offense, and how they can go on a run at any given time. I don't think they would beat Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals, but if they made it to back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals, I do think ownership in their front office would get a little bit aggressive this offseason, and with Kevin Durant only having 1 year left on his deal, I think you just got to get to the matching salary, and you can really look to make that win now move and bring Indiana its first NBA title in franchise history. Nolan says here for the Detroit Pistons that they will get past the Knicks in 6 games and take Boston to a game 7. Now shout out the Pistons, man, for looking better than the Knicks for 90% of that game number 1 and beating them in game number 2 for a team that really had relatively no playoff experience for most of their guys outside of veteran complementary pieces like Dennis Schroeder or Malik Beasley or Tobias Harris. And they just play with so much aggression, energy, and motor that this team could definitely pull off the upset and beat the Knicks in 5, 6, or 7 games in round number 1. I don't think they would take Boston to a game 7, but I do think it would be a very competitive 5-game series. It all depends on Boston's health. But Cade Cunningham looks like a true star in this league. He struggled in game number 1, but bounced back in game number 2 and looked like the best player on the floor against the Knicks. For the Houston Rockets, they mentioned if Fred VanVleet and Jalen Green continue to underperform and the Rockets lose in the first round, then neither of them will be on the team next year by the trade deadline. Yeah, I think this is pretty obvious. We know that the Houston Rockets are going to be all over Devin Booker, Kevin Durant this offseason. What if Giannis becomes available or Zion Williamson? They could be involved in those players as well. And I'm sure they would not want to move Amen Thompson in any trade unless it's for Giannis. And they would also like to hold on to Alperen Şengün as well. But Jalen Green probably has the most value that they would be willing to part ways with. Fred VanVleet has a $40+ million team option that I think is going to be declined, but that could be worked into a sign and trade as well. And Fred VanVleet did not play well in game number 1, and Jalen Green maybe played even worse. He had just 7 points and shot 20% from the field, 3 of 15 overall. And this has kind of been the moral of the story of Jalen Green's career so far in the NBA. There could be a stretch where he looks like the best player on the floor and could be a true 3-level scorer at an efficient level, and at sometimes he's just not a playable guy on either end of the floor and looks like a negative asset both offensively and defensively. I did predict Golden State to beat Houston in round number 1, but Houston is still in a good spot. They're going to have a top 10 pick via Phoenix. They still have a really good young core, even if they trade away some of these guys for a bigger name or if they just run it back next year. Like, I'd much rather be Houston right now than the Milwaukee Bucks or even the Golden State Warriors just because of what their future can be. Relentless says here that the OKC Thunder are going to sweep their way to the NBA Finals. Now, as good as OKC has looked in round number 1, I don't think they're going to sweep Denver or LA in round number 2. I did predict OKC to go to the NBA Finals, but the way that these teams have looked over the last few weeks, Denver and the Clippers are both in a tier above Memphis, and then they're either going to get Golden State, the Lakers, Minnesota, or Houston in the Western Conference Finals. Maybe they could sweep one of those teams. A couple years ago, Denver swept LA in the Western Conference Finals in 2023, but it was a very competitive sweep. We could see something like that the way that J-Dub has been playing so far and looks like a playoff riser that could be a number 2 next to Shea. The defense is just so elite and the complementary pieces around a guy that's probably going to win MVP. So I don't think they're going to sweep their way to the finals, but I would not be shocked if their record was 12-2, 12-3, or even 12-4 by the time we get to June and the start of the NBA Finals. Chief says here for the Timberwolves that he is from the future. The Wolves will make it to the Western Conference Finals before losing to OKC in Game 6. I also predicted Minnesota to beat the Lakers in round number 1 and then beat Golden State in round number 2 to lose to OKC in the conference finals. And from what I've seen so far, I do believe that Minnesota could still make it to the Western Conference Finals. Blowing out LA in game number 1 was massive for them. And I know their offense wasn't where they wanted it to be in game number 2, but with these guys getting into foul trouble, if they can work on that in game 3 and on, I think they could still pull off the upset against LA. And then I think I would take them over Golden State and Houston still in round number 2. And we're going to have even more Anthony Edwards playoff riser talks if he can carry this Minnesota Timberwolves offense to the Western Conference Finals with no Karl Anthony Towns this year. And lastly here for the Golden State Warriors, Blake says that the Warriors are going to win it all. Playoff Jimmy and Steph is so much harder to guard than people might realize, and they own Boston. So yet they did beat Boston in the 2022 NBA Finals, and both Curry and Jimmy Butler looked great in game number 1. They won in a dogfight 95-85. Jimmy had 25 and Steph had 31. Steph can really just make something out of nothing, and he's playing some of the best basketball we have seen since that 2022 championship season. And you can make an argument that this roster right now is better than what it was in 2022. The way that Draymond is playing defensively, Steph has a way better co-star than what Andrew Wiggins or Jordan Poole was for them in 2022, and Jimmy Butler, and we know that Jimmy takes it up a notch in the playoffs. And if they could just get more out of the bench unit, they need a little bit better play out of Buddy Hield, Quinn Post, and Kevon Mooney. This team could definitely make its way to the conference finals. I would be shocked if they beat OKC. They do have the veteran and the experience factor over OKC, so it's going to be really interesting to see if Steph and Jimmy can have one last run in their careers and get another accolade on their Hall of Fame resumes. So yeah, that's gonna be for me. I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, I would appreciate you dropping a thumbs up. Let me know what you guys think of these hot takes or takeaways down below. Do you agree with them? Do you disagree with them? Let me know why. Or maybe if something wasn't mentioned in this video, let me know your hot takes or takeaways down below. Hit that subscribe button for more playoff content, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.